Welcome back to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. On Monday, we talked about Teacup, a horror series on Peacock loosely based on the best-selling novel Stinger. We started off that podcast mentioning the amount of horror-themed content coming out because of Halloween. Yesterday, we happened to see Speak No Evil in the theater, a psychological horror thriller starring James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, and Scoot McNairy, who I haven't seen since *Halt and Catch Fire*. Together, which I didn't know this, but like the actual movie Speak No Evil was based on a Danish-Dutch film that was made a couple of years ago. Then Blumhouse picked it up, and even though that originally was sort of in English, most of it was shot in English, they decided to just redo the whole thing. I wonder if the twist is the same. I'll have to go back to that. But now we are here reviewing Apple's new psychological thriller, Disclaimer. And my first question is, what do all three have in common? Speak No Evil, Teacup, and Disclaimer. I can tell you if you don't know.
I would just guess that they all star because
Nope.
I know with Disclaimer.
It has to do with the plot.
The plot.
Yes, they're all very dependent on one specific element. It's
Travel?
infidelity.
Infidelity.
Travel's not bad, but infidelity, with Teacup.
With Teacup, it's a little bit, but
it's all in rural Georgia
right,
for Teacup.
Yeah.
And they're they're stuck in that square. But infidelity is center point in this for sure. Speak No Evil, without giving spoilers, it's about a couple meeting another couple. And so obviously relationship stuff is involved with that. And in Teacup, they added the drama of having the two main characters.
You said wasn't in the original novel.
Wasn't in the story or in the book. But yeah, so infidelity is the main crux of this story. And I just want to pop right into the plot because there's a lot of it to go through. 2 50-minute episodes, and each episode is labeled just a Roman numeral 1 and then a Roman numeral 2. In episode 1, we have 3 seemingly unconnected storylines taking place at 3 different times, but then they're slowly woven and pieced together until we realize that here are the storylines. Jonathan is a young adult traveling in Europe with his girlfriend back in the early 2000s. He likes to take pictures with his camera. It's an old vintage type. They're having sex on trains, pissing off gondoliers. It's young love. Before Sunrise, reminded me of that.
Yes.
Titanic, also because he likes taking pictures as opposed to drawing pictures. 20 odd years later, this is the second storyline, we have an English teacher named Stephen Brigstock, played by Kevin Kline, and he's disenchanted with being a teacher, kind of like what we've seen in Lucky Hank or Walter White, and he is a grouch. He also reminds me a little bit of like what would happen to Robin Williams' character in Dead Poet Society if he had been allowed to retain his job for long enough for him to start hating the kids that he loved.
Well, also in Teacup, the novel, I know they didn't have it in the show, but you have Tom and he's in his final year of teaching as well because he's kind of done with it, right? He's on the verge of retiring. So there's another connection there.
Is that what it says in the book?
I think so. I think that's what's happening.
I knew
to
he
the
was
father.
a teacher, and at one point in the story, he does try to like connect the kids because there's like a gang war going on. But yeah, so yeah, he's a teacher too, so good connection. But in this storyline, he is still coming to terms with his wife's death from 9 years earlier. She died of cancer, and his son's death before that. And then the third storyline has to do with Catherine, who is played by Cate Blanchett, a highly acclaimed journalist with a perfect life and a dark secret that she hides from her son and her husband. It's revealed throughout that first episode that Jonathan is in fact Stephen's dead son. So we learn the connection there. Catherine had an affair with Jonathan when she was in Italy 21 years earlier with her 5-year-old son at the time, Nicholas. Stephen finds his wife's unpublished manuscript in a locked drawer, which kind of goes over this full story. It's called Perfect Strangers or Disclaimer. I wasn't 100% sure. They kept on showing the book, and I think it showed both, about Catherine and how she destroyed their lives. So the teacher decides to publish the story 9 years after his wife's death, and then starts systematically exposing the truth about Catherine to her husband, her son, by dropping it off. And with Robert, in the case of Robert, who is her husband, he provides pictures of the affair as well that his son took, so that by the end of the second episode, it's a pretty vindictive move if you think about it. But to quote Kanye, hurt people hurt people. I mean,
okay, so I know that I think with the book it came out in 2015. The 3 timelines there though are 2011, 2013, and the 90s. So I think that there was a change from the 90s to the 2000s because it must be taking place in modern day, right?
Right. I think the main thing is they want to make Catherine young enough where she's still recognizable, and so she's not like this old lady who's getting her life is being slowly destroyed in front of her.
Right.
And so witnessing that from an old lady versus someone who is still young enough to be confused as young, casting Kate Blanchett is basically what they tried to do. But with the AI, do they use a different actress for her, or is that her? Do you know?
I don't think that they used AI. I think it was a different
She
actress.
looks significantly younger in the 2000 storyline, so that is impressive.
In the book, I know a main mystery, and it's not revealed until about halfway through, and there's going to be 7 episodes of this, so you're not there yet. But
It's a miniseries.
it's yeah, it is. But Catherine is sent the book that exposes her past, but she doesn't know who the identity is.
Yeah, that starts off the thing here because she knows it's about her, and she immediately, as a journalist, goes into reporter mode and starts to search up on like who it could possibly be. She had met with Jonathan's mom 9 years ago when she was very, very sick. And clearly about to die, terminal cancer.
Yes.
And it did not go well. Nancy and them met at this cafe. Nancy really started grinding Catherine about the fact that she is to blame for her son's death and that Nancy wants to meet with Catherine's son, Nicholas. We don't know why, but Catherine says no. And that just pisses off Nancy more. And so where am I going with that? Oh, Nancy also tells Catherine that her husband has passed away, which is a lie.
Yeah, right.
And so when Catherine starts going into investigative mode, like who sent me this book? Who made this book, right? Did somehow Nancy survive? And she finds out that that's not the case, but she finds out the husband is still alive. But she immediately, as soon as she finds out that the husband is alive, Stephen, she writes down pedo, ? Like pedophile?
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. We don't know. He's a teacher, so if he was in some way connected to be a sexual, like if that was an issue, then he would never have had a job in teaching, right?
So it sounds like there's a lot of questions because the book is more streamlined. It centers on Catherine's trauma, while the TV series, it kind of delves deep into the psychological elements, giving more backstory, and it seems like emotional complexity to Catherine.
Yeah, it sounds like you're almost reading that, but like I didn't even say how the second episode ended, because it ends with the confrontation of Robert, who's been sent the photos of his wife. He even went to talk to his kid, be like, I remember this trip. Do you remember this trip when you were 5 years old? Do you remember there being another man around? That might have been. He doesn't straight out come out and say that his wife had an affair. But when he goes to Catherine's or their place and they have this fight, then he finds out that Jonathan is dead. And that's when he thinks, you thought you got away with it. And that's the only reason you didn't tell me. And so he picks up the pictures and he gets out of there. And she is left chasing him as he drives off in the rainy London atmosphere. And what I have to say about that is it is awesome that we've gotten a Sam Mendes show and then an Alfonso Cuarón show. It's like, who next? Are we going to get a Nolan show? Like, are they going to somehow...
Christopher Nolan is somehow going to start doing TV.
And this is also so much better than Cuarón when he tried to do Believe in 2014.
Right. So before we go into that, how many films, if you could like list them possibly, have you seen that Alfonso Cuarón has made? I know you said Believe, that was kind of a TV series he did. He did some TV work back in the 80s, but really he's known for his films.
I mean, Gravity is the big one. And like Gravity, this show, Apple forked up for it. So the biggest thing about it is it's breathtaking.
Right.
And that's because they were able to shoot on these amazing locations, but locations that we don't normally see on television or even in the movies, really.
Yeah, what do you see?
Well, it tells us where they shot. So London, Pisa, Italy, a lot of Italy, Forte del Marmi, Viareggio, Venice, Cape Town.
Yeah,
those were the places I saw.
There's some South Africa.
Oh yeah, Cape Town is.
Yeah, Mexico. There's also going to be Australia that they shot. I mean, yeah, like you said, and the reason for that is because this was one of the first shows that was picked up like back in 2019.
Yeah, so Apple was really dishing out at that point.
Right.
They were like, let's bring in some movie actors. So Kate Blanchett, Kevin Kline, Sacha Baron Cohen, people you don't normally see on television. Sacha Baron Cohen, the only thing I can think about is Curb Your Enthusiasm back in like the early 2000s. But besides that, Kate Blanchett, has she ever done TV before?
I think she has, but she didn't even need a script for this. The second that she saw Alfonso Cuarón's name attached, she was like, "I'm doing it." Like, there's no chance that I'm going to be turning this thing down. I actually have a 3 Truths and 1 Lie game about Alfonso Cuarón.
Yeah.
So the first one is, and I think you're probably going to be able to get it, but the first one is Believe's pilot is one long take. By the second episode, that format was dropped. Second one is he's won 5 Academy Awards. Third one is Karan back in 2017 shopped a TV series he created called Ascension with Casey Affleck attached to star. And the last one is an alternate ending to Gravity was conceived but never filmed of Sandra Bullock's character Ryan Stone perishing in the airlock.
I'm sorry. So all of those, 3 truths and 1
Three
lie,
truths and 1 lie, yes.
they all sounded possibly fake to me. I don't know why. Then I will go with the most simple one and just say it's the 5 Academy Awards.
No, he's won 5 Academy Awards,
Okay.
4 for Roma, 1 for Gravity. The
Is it
big
The
one
Believe?
was the alternate ending to Gravity.
Oh, okay.
He was never, but I thought that you saw the Believe pilot, didn't
I
you?
did see the Believe. It was so long ago. I remember at the very end of it, the kid like did some magic power stuff, and it was a superhero show. And also, it was very popular in Brazil. And the girl went on to be, I think, in Dexter New Blood. So that's been her biggest role.
He has since come out saying that he didn't really know what he was doing back then. He didn't really know how
so
to do
awful. I was
TV.
like, this can't be the guy who did Gravity. But yeah, no, this show is amazing as far as what it looks like. They got great talent behind or in front of the camera. And I cracked the code. What separates it and what makes it so distinct, and it's the D word, not disclaimer, it's distraction. So what I realized in every scene that you watch of this show, there's always something going on in the background, whether it be the camera moving to try to like keep things in the shot, or they always have like a pet in the background, or they have people moving around showing the serenity of everyday life. Like it's never not busy, but it's lulling almost. It's hypnotizing you so that even if your focus is straying from the conversation, which is bound to happen in a lot of things and makes things boring, especially when you have slow relationship dramas, right? It's just keeping your attention drawn to everything that's going around it.
I know you pointed out the cat in every single scene.
Catherine's house is shown. We see her cat, which is both like, it's not a bad thing. It's so amazing. Like you would think that that's one of a, like after a while it just gets old, but no, this cat is so entertaining. How many cats did they have on set?
I didn't get that information.
I've never seen a cat, even when like it's a cat oriented story where it's been in this much of a show. It's insane. Like Sabrina the Teenage Witch is the only one I can think of where Salem should have been in more of the show, but the girl who played her in the Chilling Adventures was allergic, and so they didn't actually have her with the cat in most of the episodes. Steven is also, I like the tiny details, and this comes in with the distractions when your like eyes go from their mouths and you're just looking at their clothing. He finds his wife's cardigan in the first episode, and he puts it on even though it doesn't fit him, and he wears it underneath everything that it goes out to do. Like when he's delivering these book copies to the husband and the son, he's still wearing it. You can see just the pink underneath everything.
And Kelvin Kline was one of the first people to sign on. Kevin Kline, sorry, Kevin Kline. Yeah, he was one of the first people to sign on. This marks his first series debut for TV, although he's been in other TV series.
What does that even mean?
So it means that it's the first, like, I think TV pilot where he's like been in it. So yeah,
as a main star, is not a guest star.
Yeah.
So there's shops, cafes, markets, offices, outdoors. They aren't like we're gonna set these locations. Even in the house, in Catherine's giant house, there's not like one camera shot angle. This thing is moving around the whole time. It's shot like a movie, and the breadcrumb storytelling, which you told me that the book doesn't have, where it's just kind of like giving you a scene from this timeline and then this timeline. And
it does jump around timelines, but I don't think it does it as much as this show does.
Like sometimes when there's that type of story, the clues can come, they can repeat themselves so many times that it feels like you're being spoon-fed the truth. And then, or it can run the risk of losing the audience because you're not being given enough information that the normal person won't be able to track what you're trying to tell them. This does it perfectly because it's not only telling you what it's going to, like what happens. Like in the first episode, Nicholas says, yeah, this random guy, one of my customers, gave me this book to read. And this is when Catherine is freaking out because she realizes she's the main character of that book, but her son doesn't realize that. And then we see in the first scene of the next episode that actually happened. Like they go back. And so it's less about knowing what's happening and showing how it happened, and just the amazing acting between the Kevin Kline character and whoever played Nicholas.
You know, there's two films I want to bring up. One is Stranger Than Fiction, even though that one I know the plot is that she doesn't know that she's writing an actual life that's going on with Will Ferrell's character. But also the second one is Before, was it Sunset? Because he ends up writing about Before Sunrise at the beginning of that film.
Yeah. Writers are an easy thing to deal with, especially journalists too, because in a form she's a writer as well. That's why the narration in this is actually said from several different characters. It's not just one character narrating the whole series. But I do think, for a while I thought it might be the cat that was narrating, because it's everywhere and it's watching everything. But no, I think it's either Catherine or the dead wife Nancy who is narrating Catherine's bit of the story. Well, it is Kevin Kline's character who is narrating his own story and talking about his own emotions. And credit to the actors for matching the emotions that you're seeing the narrator talk about.
Yes, Sacha Baron Cohen, I didn't even recognize him.
And yeah, his performance is pretty good. He really gets his opportunity to shine, I think, in the second episode when he finds out about his wife's affair. That's when the emotion comes out. It's a very smart show, but it's not afraid to be dumb too, because he insults a lot. Sacha Baron Cohen, like he's like fucking twat, like he's upset. It's very British, winker, twat, that type of stuff.
Initially, Coran went to Sacha Baron Cohen, and he didn't want to do it. Sacha Baron Cohen wanted to back out of it, but he was able to actually convince him to take the role.
Back out, like he had done.
He didn't think that he was going to be able to do like this dramatic of a role, and then Coran, basically convinced him to sign on to the series.
Like you said, I wouldn't have recognized Borat otherwise, except for his name in the credits. The bad stuff is that in the end, this is kind of a pretty meaningless storyline. And what I mean by that is, like, say the worst thing happened and that Stephen is able to uproot Catherine's life and screw up her marriage, where that's where this is sort of going, that she's going to get a divorce. She's already in a difficult relationship with her son. Like, they do not like each other because she sort of kicked him out, even though they're like uber rich.
Well, she gave him a new place, right?
She didn't give him a new place. He's living in like some dump, kind of dorm setup, and it's a sty. It's
even
really
though
bad.
He's like 25, but he seemed like an angsty teen throughout the whole entire.
Right,
at least
he's
first
got
episode.
attitude, and everybody's got their issues. No one's an idiot, so like they're all kind of smart, but they kind of show the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of each one. Even Robert, like he is a nepo kid, like his family is super rich, that's where his wealth comes from, and he also works in a business that kind of works against anti-corruption, so like all those places that are offshore accounts and stuff, he helps those businesses, those NGOs, right. And so that's how he's shown in the second episode. So everybody's got their demons in their closet, but at the same time they're well-rounded enough where you see the goodness in them. Catherine specifically, there's a lot of reasons not to like her. And she does play the victim a little bit, but she also has a mom who's like going through Alzheimer's, that I think a lot of people can like relate to that thing of like not wanting to broach it quite yet, but it's clear that it's happening.
Right.
And then she also isn't okay with the fact that she cheated. She has been trying to tell her husband, but Robert has made it sort of difficult. I don't want to like align myself into either camp, but it does make for good relationship drama if you're into that. But if you're not, I can understand why you wouldn't like the show. It's also a little whiny in that second episode, the confrontation itself, when Robert comes in there and he's like, you cheated on me and blah, 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 blah. If you get the gist of it, I can see where that would just be too melodramatic, even if it was effective.
But that's how they ended the second episode.
I'm just trying to give people an understanding of like what could be the weaknesses. Nicholas trying to sell Stephen goes in there with one purpose, and that's to trick Nicholas into taking the book. But then Nicholas tries to sell him a Dyson, and he compared it to a Maserati. And it was, as someone who has a Dyson vacuum, I can tell you, like, those things are not as consistent as a Maserati would be. Pacing, it's very deliberate, a little repetitive, but I think it's doing that on purpose. It comes back to the location. You kind of want to see all those shots from the past. So it's not like you're getting an overload of stuff that you don't want.
So would you say there's more pros than cons that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. We're waiting on a bunch of mysteries. How Jonathan died, why, because at one point Nancy says that your son wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Jonathan. So Nicholas was clearly like, maybe he was about to die and Jonathan like jumped in front of a car and pushed him out of the way. We don't know what happened. We also don't know why Nancy didn't tell her husband to like publish the book earlier before she died. When Catherine is going through her notes of like who could possibly be blackmailing her, she writes down waiter ? Police. Like, so we do know that there was like a story that will get revealed. Overall, I want to give this a very positive review. I will compare it to one of the shows I gave a very negative review to, and that's Expats, because it's very similar to that in that there's 3 different storylines that are all connected through tragedy of a kidnapping in that case. But Kate Blanchett's character in this is 50 times better than Nicole Kidman at establishing some sort of sympathy. You feel bad for her. She certainly brought a lot of this onto herself for not telling her husband and making a better relationship with her kid. And she hasn't taken full responsibility for that, but it's haunting her and in a way humanizing her because of it. And you add on Quaron being able to bring this story to life. I would give it 9 out of 10
A
meows.
9 out of 10. Wow.
9 out of 10 meows. And at the very, very end of the Apple credits, if you watch all through, which I don't think a lot of people do, but it says Shanta, Shanta, Shanta. And I had to look that up. It's a line from a T.S. Eliot poem, The Wasteland, where it's presented as a closing blessing from like Sanskrit.
Mhm.
And it particularly means it's a plea for peace on 3 levels, because it's the same word over and over again. Peace in the body, peace in speech, peace in the mind. And in my thinking, that really applies to Catherine because she's going through this physical distress, peace of the body, where she needs peace because she's so tense at keeping this secret, at keeping silent. She's been hiding it for so long, unable to confess, peace of the speech. And then it's such psychologically in her mind tormenting her, paranoia, confusion, fear. We see all that on display. And so I think that I think Quaron probably stuck that in at the end or made it so that, and it really applies back well. That's getting pretty deep into this, the show's notes.
I mean, knowing Quran, that's basically, I think, that what he would want. I will just give some backstory as to how the show was made before we jump into the review. So Renee Knight, the book came out in 2015. She was the author. She was also a BBC documentarian. And
documentarian?
Or she worked for the BBC. She was a documentary maker. So
I think she put herself into Catherine because Catherine has just made this documentary about boarding schools and she's got an award for it. So.
I was wondering because this was her debut novel, but I read that Alfonso Cuarón got an advanced copy of it, and I don't really know how that happened because, again, it's not like she was an established author. This was the first book that she came out with, but he read it, he loved it, he thought to himself, okay, I'm going to make a 4-hour or 5-hour movie, even citing Once Upon a Time in America as inspiration for doing that, but things got in the way. The Casey Affleck pilot, which it seems like never happened. Roma, which was the last thing that he's directed, and I was wondering why the case is, and it's because the Apple contract that he signed was a multi-year overall deal where he would be developing projects exclusively for Apple.
I mean, that's what most of the Jason whatever space is doing the same thing with Netflix.
Right. So in December 2021, and then he cited Twin Peaks and the Kingdoms as a reason to kind of make a movie split into 7 parts, which is how he pitched it to Kate Blanchett and why she decided to sign on. That's why he decided to do this.
So that's why I thought about midway through the series. I was watching, I was like, I wonder if the actors were just sold on the fact that it was like 5 different movies in a row that they were all being doing.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how he pitched it.
I was like, that's not even worth writing down because that's so stupid. But yeah, okay.
I know that the show has gotten pretty good reviews. 7.1 on IMDb, 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, 68% audience score. There's been some negative reviews. I know that Guardian gave it 2 out of 5 stars.
Is that because it's whiny?
They said it was slow, turgid, and so bad it needed to be pureed into mush.
See, again, the relationship drama you definitely have to have like some patience for. But like Before Sunset and Before Sunrise and all those things, if you give it the time of day, this is really, really. I wonder if they were watching it like fully or if they were kind of like taking notes at the same time, because a lot of it just you get distracted by the things around it, and it's not even about what the characters are saying. You're just like, this is just a spectacle. And so I think it's what that show a few years ago was going for that I actually didn't like that much. Not the Luminaries, because that's a different show, but it was about the couple, the gross couple that had murdered someone. And then at the end of the first episode, they were being arrested for it.
Was that that wasn't the Pam show, was it? That was
No, you're thinking like way more common. Olivia Colman could have been one of them.
Oh, the like landscapers or something.
Yeah, the landscapers.
Yeah.
It was like super artsy, and yet it was overkill. It was forced art versus this, which feels like organic art. The book was not received that well, not even as well as Stinger.
Mhm.
It didn't make the New York Times bestseller. It's a bestseller, but just like random paper bestseller. So I'm not surprised that this actually improved it.
I remember prior to Believe, you said that everything that Alfonso Cuarón has done, you've liked.
What was everything at that point?
Well, everything before that was Gravity, Children of Men, Harry Potter, The Prisoner of Azkaban, Y Tu Mama Tambien. Like, I mean, all this stuff.
Okay.
So I think that this is just another one in that catalog.
Well, the Y Tu Mama Tambien reminds me of there's an insane amount of sex that's going on, like in the first
for first 5 minutes of this series.
Yeah, in the first 5 minutes of this. But yeah, other than that, anything else you want to talk about?
No, that's about it.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. 9 out of 10 from me. Bye.
Bye.